Before I start this video, I do not condone anything I am about to talk about. YouTube, if you're listening, this video is for educational purposes only. Hopefully they will not bring down the hammer on that one. So if you're into cars at all, you probably come across a bunch of these documentaries about swimming through traffic. You know, America's most wanted car thieves and America's most wanted street racers, whatever. And if you don't know what throughway or highway swimming is, it's when people get in a car and they purposely weave through traffic at an extremely high speed. And shockingly, usually in stolen vehicles or rented ones, which is even more crazy to me. Think of it like the Kia Boys, but on steroids. There, you can use that lyric for some terrible SoundCloud song. Once again, I'm going to use this video as a discussion for your opinion. So first things first, what is your opinion about the highway swimmers? Put it down in the comment section below. And in this video, I'm gonna be kind of breaking down and referencing the recent Tommy G video, where he's already done this before, but this one gives a lot more perspective of how the system all works, of how they steal the cars and how they do all these things, and my whole opinion about it. Because on a live stream the other day, people asked me, what do you think about the swimming culture? And they're not talking about Michael Phelps, dog. These guys would make great ambulance drivers. This was the best documentary showing children using their parents' money. As somebody who tries to have reason, I think the most disturbing part about this whole series is how it's enforced. Sure, it is not easy to catch somebody who's doing these actions, but you'd think the consequences would be so much higher. You just gotta import like 100 GSP and the whole problem would be gone.
Anybody tell you about us? Anybody tell you about us?
I'm kidding, but I'll get into that later, more about police pursuits and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, I want to be very clear. At first, I was kind of split about these YouTubers covering these people and covering their actions and maybe promoting them and giving them screen time. But the more you watch these videos, the more you realize that it's basically self-incrimination. Overall, I'm not blaming the creator. I view it much more like, say, a person in the press going to a conflict zone and not participating, just covering. And a quick side note, I also watched Brandon Buckingham's video as well, and the fact that one of the drivers says, "I've never crashed into an NPC," tells you that they don't take this seriously at all, and they treat it like it's a GTA 5 server. And honestly, it's pretty bold for these guys who do show their faces to glamorize this culture or community or whatever you want to call it, criminal syndicate, and they're just blatantly talking in front of millions of people describing the entire enterprise. Verbatim, one of them says, "Yeah, that last video with Tommy just really got us a lot of unwanted attention." It's like, yeah, no shit. But in some of the videos that you see online, that stuff would never fly in a bunch of other states. Like doing donuts around a police officer, that would get you pitted immediately by GSP here. Like not even an argument. Even if you want to make the argument of these swimmers or whatever you want to call it, reckless drivers, going through traffic, yes, that would be difficult to pursue them in a thick case of New York traffic, right? They film all of their activities, you know their social media accounts, so I don't really quite understand that aspect of the whole thing. And Tommy G literally asked License, one of the drivers, if he's scared of the police, and he just says no. I think Tommy's video does a good job debunking this image that a lot of these guys promote, that it's really not that dangerous and that there's not a lot of crashes, and kind of making it look risk-free when obviously it's not. You have to think while these guys are swimming through the traffic that there could be a tire that's a little bit more worn out, or you get a puncture, or a mechanical failure, or one person changing lanes without a blinker on immediately and not seeing you. People are overall pretty bad at driving anyway, let alone somebody going by them at crazy speeds. And they even go into some of the rental car companies that rent the cars to these guys willingly because it's good for business. And I'm sitting here going, why aren't these places geolocated? And sure, you do have to build a case and make a conviction and all this stuff, but like, why is nothing being done? I think that's where I'm kind of puzzled by it. But you could easily find the place of where this rental fleet is. Maybe it's because the underground car culture, whatever you want to call it nowadays, is so foreign to me. Like, sure, there were problems when I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s and even the 2010s. Cars would get stolen. All that's always been a thing, right? We know that's always been a thing. But the nighttime car culture is so different from what I grew up with that it just breaks my logic, right? Like, the entire point back then was not to be seen. This makes sense now because there's no consequences anymore. Now, just such a different culture with the social media stuff, the takeover stuff, that all now has so minimal consequences in some of these cities that they just freely film everything. And then Tommy goes and talks to some of the actual car thieves. And once again, they have no fear of consequences. Zero. And of course, it's a Dodge Charger. Like, as soon as they start interviewing him, it's like, yep, of course it is. Of course it is. But you won't see a Dodge Charger EV being stolen, though. And I did a little bit of reading on the police pursuit policy of New York City. They basically have overall a no chase law, and that pretty much bans them from doing a GSP style police chase, right? The only exception is if it's a violent crime or, you know, a warrant or something along those lines. So basically, if somebody does a low-level traffic offense, you can't go after them. But I'm sorry, doing donuts around a police car is not a low-level traffic offense. That's literally an insult to the police department to say, we're not afraid of you, you have no authority. And they get off on that, obviously. They think it's fun, they think it's funny. Where I grew up, if I did this stuff, I would have been thrown in jail and they would have thrown away the key. Like, not even close. I would have been made an example of. And there's another great point made in this video about ghost plates, aka fake license plates. In New York, there's a policy called no plate, no case. I don't understand that logic either, because say I'm a police officer and there's somebody in front of me driving pretty recklessly. 1, red flag. 2, if you scan a plate and it doesn't work, don't you think that's a little suspicious? It's like a laser jammer, right? If a police officer hits you with laser and it jams the laser, I wouldn't be surprised if the police officer pulls you over anyway to be like, hey man, why didn't my LiDAR work? How come it's not working? It worked for everybody else. And when they talk to license, I think it's really sad in a lot of ways because his whole family doesn't know, his fiance doesn't know, and also at the same time he said he has no vices other than driving. And that statement is very relatable, I think, to a lot of car people who do it the right way. And maybe in a different life or a different timeline, things would have been different. The problem is that it's just so easy for them. They steal a car or rent a car, which is still crazy to me. They weave through the traffic at high speed. They get the adrenaline rush. They get away with it every single time, and then they go home. They just go, yeah, we just switch cars every day. And I wish somebody was there maybe before they started doing all this to teach them about stuff, right? Try to tell a lot of the takeover kids this same statement. There's a better way to do this. And I know this sounds like so sanitized and kind of preachy, but when you do motorsports like the legit way, and you do it enough times, and you might even see it as inconvenient, right? Oh, I gotta go to the track, I gotta go all the way there, I gotta pay a door fee. Dude, brother, I'm telling you, it's way better than getting a lawyer and going to jail and all this stuff. You don't wanna deal with that. You go to the track enough times that you start to appreciate it more because your skill set gets better, the community is way healthier, and you don't have to be looking over your shoulder the whole time. But the problem is I believe that this adrenaline rush is part of why they do this, right? It's they go on the highway and they like the feeling of power they have, that they almost feel like that they are better than everybody else and they can do this and they get away with it. They even say when they see a cop car, they get excited. That should not be the response. They shouldn't be laughing and cheering and being in a good mood if a cop is putting their lights on behind them and they're running. That's just a big issue of once again showing there's no consequence. Like, I don't really have a horse in this race. This is just all an opinion about me observing these things as somebody from somewhere else and how I don't quite understand some of the policy, right? You don't know when that one person's gonna merge over and cause a huge wreck and terrible things are gonna happen. But I do have to defend Tommy G's closing statement of the video. He basically says their behavior, all their excuses, none of them are basically valid. Even when taking such a deep dive into their perspective, none of it lines up with the right thing to do, right? And at the same time, there's better things to do with your life. Being bored is not an excuse for doing this kind of stuff, right? And I think that was the right thing to say. Even though you hung out with these people, even though you made a connection with these people, because you do need to build connection with people that you don't agree with. You do need to build a connection with people that you don't see eye to eye in what they do. Because after these videos, obviously the wrong type of audience is gonna go there and just buy their merch and encourage this behavior some more. That's how I kind of see it. And on that note, what do you think should be done about this? Put it down in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time, and take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.